Welcome to episode 260 of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can have more enjoyable home building journeys and build quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. This week we have part 2 of our interview with Rachel. She's a homeowner working with a general contractor, and they're finishing up a custom build in Ohio. This week, Rachel talks more about her home building journey and what she would do differently if she were to build again, and also the best part about building a custom home. So we don't have to wait. Let's get right into the second part of the interview.
So it sounds like just being really careful about not having to make changes. That's one way to save. Any other things that you can think of that'll help you save and it sounds like also that you're doing some high-low shopping, like you're buying some expensive things and then you're buying some things that are more modestly priced instead of just going whole hog throughout the whole house. That's another tip that it seems like you've used.
Absolutely, I would say. And if you are the type of person where you'll go back later and say replace a light fixture, I say it would be fine to, even go with a simple light bulb if you feel like later on down the road you're going to replace that with, say, a more expensive light. Not every part of the home has to have something expensive, and that's just my perspective. So we are the type of people that we owned our other home for 10 years and had all these different plans where we wanted to change something later, never did. So I know that about myself going into this. So I said, okay, I know I'm not going to change it. So give me what I need now, because chances are this is what it's going to be forever. So some things with the back patio that we wanted to add, say, landscaping. So we're going to be moving in and you can kind of plan when your build starts and stuff like that time-wise. So we're not going to be doing a lot of landscaping because we're moving in January. So landscaping is a whole nother cost where we can save until the spring or whenever we decide that we need to start doing the landscaping. So you can kind of finagle it a little bit time-wise if you feel like landscaping is going to be a large cost, you can factor that in as well.
Yeah, that's good. You said that you built before, but it wasn't completely custom. Given that experience and also your current experience, is there anything you would do differently if you built again, either with the house design or the building process itself?
So I would say there is so much we would do differently. First being, I would probably hire an architect to help with the building process. So the way that we built, we met with a guy within our builder who then talked with us. They kind of got our ideas of how we want the house to flow when we were creating the floor plan, I should say. They would take those ideas, those plans back to the architect. The architect would draw something up. Then the guy would bring it back to us and we would kind of then tweak it from there. That process was so very long because, again, there was so much that we were kind of figuring out as we went along. So it would save a lot of time to be able to speak directly with an architect. And we actually went and we inquired about an architect in the beginning. And so their cost was a certain percentage of your overall cost of your home, including land. And the price was just astronomical for us. And at that point, so we decided not to go with it. But at the end of the day, the peace of mind to know that we wouldn't be running into some of these problems now, because it just felt like it would have made the process so much faster to be able to not play the game of telephone back and forth and make changes that way. Right. Again, when they're creating the plan and creating the writing up all the things that we had decided, a lot of it wasn't in layman's terms. It wasn't in terms that we could understand. So that again then made the process a little bit more difficult, because here we are trying to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and a lot of things weren't layman's terms.
I'm proud of you for, you were talking about it before. You actually call in saying, what does this mean? Is this what we talked about? Because some people would be embarrassed to do that, but it's great advice to, if you don't understand it, just ask.
Yes. In the beginning, I would say I was very much more of a timid, like, okay, this is what they do. I'm kind of more go with the flow. And as we're getting towards the end, there's things and changes that I've seen that maybe I wouldn't speak up about. For instance, like we had one of the niches was off centered in the bathroom. They had already completed the tile, like it was already cut out and everything. And I said, well, that's not even. Like, I don't like that. So can you change that? And of course, they're going to have to cut out the tile and move the niche and do all of that. At the end of the day, you are the one that has to live in the home.
That's right.
So if it's something that really bothers you, like the symmetry wise, or, something doesn't quite look right, as a person who might be timid, you're the one that has to stare at that every day.
That's right.
So just keeping that in mind, that speak up, and you are paying money for this. And so you should be absolutely in love with the end product that you get.
I completely agree with you. And you're a really sweet girl, Rachel. And I try to be sweet. And there's a way that you can communicate and still be kind.
That's right.
You can be kind. You don't have to be rude, but I agree with you. You should get what you want, because there are sacrifices and there are things that we can't get, even though we're building a custom home, either because of budget or because of how the land is laid out, or
Right.
for safety issues. So if things can be changed to the way that we want, I think it's okay for us to respectfully ask for what we want.
That's right. Just being direct. They're trying to do what's best for them, as well as trying to give us the home that we want. So they do have a business. And so a lot of the times there are things that I've seen that, I don't want to say cut corners, but going the path that is the easiest, the least path of resistance.
That's right.
Path of least resistance. So that's what they are more inclined to do. So I think that having that open communication and really knowing that we're not coming from a hostile place, we're not coming at anyone for whatever type of mistake, but saying, hey, like, this is not how I pictured this. This is not what we had in our plan. Can you please fix this? And so they're generally very open about what they can fix and what they can't fix. There are some things that went into the home that we spoke up about, and then they come back and giving us a reason why they can't fix it, or why it has to be that way. So you probably won't get everything you want, just knowing that going into it, but really just being direct and saying, okay, this is what I need.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So I totally agree that we should feel free to communicate with them, to ask for what we want. So let's talk about some other things. You said that you had some more things that you would do differently if you built again. What else?
I would have a strong idea of what I wanted before starting the process. A lot of the things that we did, with being so crazy busy, my husband and I both work full time. We had 3 kids at the time, 4 now, and just living in an apartment, it felt a lot of the decisions felt rushed, which I feel like I wish I would have been a little bit more prepared in a lot of those areas. That's definitely something that I would do differently.
Yeah. One of the guys that I work with, he built a house a few years ago, way before the pandemic. And he said his builder, and I'd never heard of this, but he said that his builder had, his normal process was to have the homeowner pick everything out, everything, all the lighting fixtures, everything beforehand. Number one, they knew what the budget was. And number two, because it's just a lot more enjoyable. And if you wanted to switch things up a little bit, you could, but you would have, 80 to 90% of everything already picked out.
Interesting.
I like that idea, although I don't know how well it would work for me, because I'm on Pinterest like, oh my gosh, I love that. Can I somehow include that? But I do think it's a great idea to, at least for yourself. I think even if the builder doesn't do it, at least for yourself, just kind of say, okay, these are my 2 or 3 options for the lights in the kitchen or the bathtub or whatever it is. I think that would be so helpful. Anything else you'd do differently?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so those are some things you do differently, Rachel. What challenges did you encounter that you would warn us about?
So again, kind of having a really good idea of what you wanted before you go in there, because a challenge for us was the timeline of everything. So we have some of the decisions had to be made within a week, a day, a couple days. And when you work full time and you have other children, those types of things can really kind of need to go to the forefront of your to-do list.
Yeah.
And so that is definitely something that was challenging to say, okay, we need to look at lighting. We need to look at making this decision with X, Y, or Z. And then a lot of areas we felt like we were looking for more guidance that we really didn't have. So again, with our designer, going back to the lights, we were given several websites to look at of lights that they provided. And I really wasn't finding anything that I liked. Actually, I just hated all of it. So that was kind of hard to piece those things together, not really having an eye for design, but trying to create, like taking a photo and making a collage of all of the lights that would be in the same view. So say you're standing in the living room, you're going to see the foyer light, you're going to see the kitchen pendants, you're going to see the light above the nook, to make sure that they're to see the stair sconces, which were really, really difficult for me to decide on. You're kind of going to see a lot of those things in the same line of vision. So really having to take a lot of time to piece all that together and make sure that it flows and it's not so choppy, because again, my husband and I have very different design styles. He likes more modern and I'm more transitional. So finding something that we agreed on. So if you have a partner that does not have the same or similar style as you, it's very challenging. But I think that we compromised on a lot of things and came out with something really beautiful. Because when Pinterest is your canvas, it's a beautiful but very overwhelming thing, right?
It is. It's so true.
And days. But something that I found was helpful, even as we were starting the floor plan stage of the building, I would create folders. So say master bedroom, master bathroom, foyer, and really having a few key pieces to focus on in those rooms that you're going to want to have, and going from there. So saying even just one main thing that you wanted to focus on in a single room, and then kind of building around that. Because looking at the room as a whole, it's very overwhelming. So I would definitely suggest that. Because decision fatigue is a real thing. So knowing kind of what you want from the start and having a great idea of how it's all going to mesh together is so helpful and cuts the time down tremendously.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It sounds like for you, you kind of did mood boards for each room, even if they were just like separate images and folders, but still you together, it kind of made a mood board. And it sounded like for most rooms, you started with the focal point, the thing you kind of wanted to really focus on. And then you built around, or you designed the room around that. Yeah, that's a great idea. So that does definitely help with the overwhelm that you might feel for having to design and decorate an entire house. It really can be overwhelming.
And really giving yourself slack if, say, you're building your any home, but this is our forever home. So I know even going into it that it's not going to be fully furnished. It's not going to be fully complete even for a year or more. So giving myself a little bit of grace in that sense, where I know, okay, it's not going to be perfect. It's a work in progress, kind of helps the mindset of, oh my goodness, this is so overwhelming. Because I mean, you're deciding literally every single thing, grout color, spacing of everything. Now we're at the point where they're going to be hanging lights soon. How far off the ground do you want this light hung?
Right.
Where on your curved staircase do you want the sconces to be hung?
Yeah.
I don't know. So those were a lot of the decisions that I said, oh my gosh, I really have no clue whatsoever. So it's taken a lot of research, a lot of time to make those decisions, because I have no prior knowledge of any of those things.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really difficult. I mean, but what I've learned, Rachel, is that almost everything is Googleable. Any question that you had, because I even had like a question like, how large can a TV be in a regular sized room and not be too large? And how close to the TV can you sit without it being uncomfortable? I Googled it and it was right there. So like even those simple rules, how far should a pendant hang to the countertop or to the, island countertop? It's in Google. So I say, Google it if you have a question, and then adjust it if you don't like Google's answer. But at least Google will give you a starting point.
And another great resource is YouTube. So a lot of vloggers are out there and that have vlogged their process. And so I found that really, really helpful in saying like the design phase of the layout of the home. So say for our like master bathroom, we went with a wet room, which is a little different. I found one of the vloggers that did it. I found it on Pinterest. I kind of had the idea, okay, oh, I really like that. So that's something that we went with. So YouTube is a really great resource as well.
Oh, good. Rachel, can you give us the name of the vloggers that you watch, or at least one or two of them?
Yeah, so there's one in particular. Her name is Olivia Ansell. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Ansell. And she has a channel called Ansylvania,
I know
Ansell.
her.
Vania. Yes, I
I know
love
her.
her
Yes.
home.
Yeah.
I love the tips that she gave, and so kind of a lot of the things in her home were something that I really was attracted to, and her style. And she makes a lot of great YouTube videos that are pretty short, and so they're easy to watch, say, or listen to even in the car,
Mhm.
or if you're busy like that. You can just listen to it on the go, and so I think she's really easy to listen to.
She is. I really like her. It's so funny that you say that, because for months now, I was like, I've got to ask her to be on the podcast. But so maybe this is the sign that I need to actually just write her and ask
Absolutely.
her. Because
Yes.
I really love her channel too. I really do. So you kind of have been answering this sort of all along the interview, but is there anything specific that you want to talk about as far as what you know now that you wish you had known before you started building your house?
Yes, I would definitely say budget
Mm.
is a difficult one, especially for us. We went into it having a budget and kind of realized that the cost of what we wanted to build was not in that budget, but in fact
Mm.
in a different budget. So
Yeah.
having that in your mind, knowing that if you have a hard number that you want to stay within, that you're probably going to have to make some modifications to stay within that, because even now the cost of things are jumping, and so you may not be getting as much for your dollar as you would say. Who knows what the housing market's going to do, and the economy is going to do. So that's a hard question to ask or answer, but it's definitely having the ability to pay some things out of pocket was helpful. So when we sold our home, we used that money as the down payment, so then our loan cost was a little less.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah. But just knowing that there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be out of pocket going forward in the build, and not being surprised by that.
So you talked a little bit about like your shower door was out of pocket. Any other things that come to mind that you had to, like, oops, we got to pay for this on our own?
So we had made some changes as far as the backsplash. We wanted to kind of have the same backsplash as the countertop, so we had to pay for that out of pocket because it wasn't budgeted into what we had originally planned.
Mhm.
If you add any lighting, so we added a few different lighting fixtures that I didn't add initially. That again was out of pocket. A lot of the concrete work that we had made with the front steps, it was totally different than how we had it on our original plans. So all of that was out of pocket. So just things like that.
I think that's just a part of the build.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a rare homeowner who doesn't have any surprises and who doesn't have to pay anything out of pocket. I think it's pretty typical. We've talked about some mistakes and some challenges, but let's kind of end with what is the best part about building a custom home?
So I would say the validation of spending so much time thinking through each and every selection, right down, like I said, to the grout color, just seeing it go from paper to a physical being, knowing that no other house is like this.
Mhm.
And this is where I get to raise my children and live our forever. And so that is just an amazing experience to be able to even have these problems. I never thought that I would be here. So it's a blessing at the same time of all the headache. It is an amazing experience just to be able to build a custom home.
Yeah. And have it be, well, 95% of what you wanted and what you've always
Mm-hmm.
imagined. Yeah, I agree
Mm-hmm.
with you. That's really wonderful. So, Rachel, you have been so helpful. Thank you for being so open and transparent. Do you have any social media accounts or anything else that you'd like to share with us before you go?
Yeah, I have tried to document the process on my Instagram, which is Rachel_Durant. It's RACHEL_D as in David, URRANT. It's labeled Forever Home. And so I've kind of tried to save my stories that I've documented through this whole entire process from start to finish on that tab. So I do document some on my Facebook, which is just my first and last name, but primarily on Instagram.
Well, you have been wonderful. Your house is beautiful. I can't wait to see the very finished product. It's almost there though. Like I'm excited just by what I see so far. So just hold on, Rachel, hold on. You're almost there. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing with us. I know that, you've helped me. So, and I know you will help many of my audience members. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Rachel, I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and your advice with us. And special thanks to you again for being so patient and kind with me during my technical difficulties. It's always so valuable for me to hear from homeowners like Rachel who've finished or nearly finished with their custom builds. Listen, no two construction projects will be the same. And none will be perfect, but learning from the experiences of others will give us a general idea, at least of some of the things we can expect. And that will make our journeys easier and more enjoyable. So if you or someone you know would like to share your home building experience here on the podcast, just email me at michelle@byhyu.com. That's Michelle with 2 L's at byhyu.com. If you haven't subscribed to the show, please go ahead and do that. So as soon as new episodes are released, they'll come to your podcast library. And I have been publishing so sporadically because of my work. It's probably a good idea to subscribe or follow the show because I never know exactly when I'll have enough time to put out new content. Well, that's it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And I hope you'll join me again next time for the next episode of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.